She boldly kissed the millionaire, only to uncover his hidden years-long devotion. HFY Reddit.
Celine stepped onto the gleaming deck of the Aurora Prime, her heart beating faster than the engines she had spent months repairing. The station floated silently above the cerulean earth, a symbol of wealth and power, a place where the rich and influential came to celebrate their achievements. Celine, a humble engineer, did not belong here. She had been invited only because of her work on the station's engines. Her designs had improved efficiency and stability in ways even the elite could not ignore. Yet as she looked around the grand hall, sparkling with crystal chandeliers and holographic displays, she felt the weight of her difference. The guests laughed in soft, controlled tones, their designer suits and polished manners marking them as citizens of another world. Celine tugged at her plain uniform and tried to blend in, but she knew she would always stand out. She adjusted her gloves nervously and made her way toward the balcony, where the vastness of space stretched infinitely. The stars twinkled like diamonds, and below, Earth rotated slowly, a quiet reminder of home. She breathed deeply, feeling a strange mix of awe and discomfort. Then she saw him. Cale Draven stood at the center of the hall, surrounded by admirers. He was tall, impeccably dressed, and moved with the confidence of someone used to getting what he wanted. But there was something in his eyes, a flicker of fatigue, a shadow that softened his sharp features, that made Celine pause. She had heard the stories. The billionaire who had built colonies, funded entire planetary industries, and wielded influence that reached across the stars. People called him unapproachable, ruthless, untouchable. Yet as he smiled faintly at a young diplomat, Celine saw a humanity few others seemed to notice. Driven by curiosity, and something she could not name, Celine walked toward him. Her boots clicked softly on the polished floor, but the sound seemed to draw attention. Conversations paused, eyes turned, and a ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. She ignored it and reached him, her heart thundering with both fear and excitement. Kyle turned slightly, acknowledging her presence with a tilt of his head. His gaze was steady, curious, not condescending. Without thinking, without a plan, Celine leaned forward and pressed her lips to his in a bold kiss. The hall gasped. Guests froze, shocked by the audacity of an engineer daring to kiss the richest man on the station. Kyle's expression shifted, not with anger or surprise, but with a calm that unsettled her more than any scolding could have. He did not pull away. Instead, he held her gently for a brief moment before stepping back, his eyes searching hers as if trying to understand the impulsive courage that had brought her here. Celine's face burned. She had expected ridicule, perhaps even dismissal, but Cale only regarded her quietly. Then, with a polite nod, he murmured, "Interesting choice." The words were almost lost in the sudden resumption of conversations, but they lingered in Celine's mind. Interesting. That single word carried weight. It suggested curiosity, not judgment, and something inside her shifted. For the rest of the evening, Celine found herself drawn to him. Cale moved through the room like a shadow, observing rather than flaunting, listening rather than speaking. He asked questions that went beyond pleasantries, questions about her work on the engines, her ideas for improving life on the station, her dreams for Earth and the colonies. Each answer she gave was met with thoughtful consideration, a nod, a question that hinted he had been paying attention to more than just her skills. Other guests tried to engage her, but Celine noticed the contrast immediately. Where they were polite, Cale was sincere. Where they sought to impress, he sought to understand. And through it all, she sensed a quiet patience, a depth of knowledge, a hidden devotion to something larger than himself. She could not yet name it, but the feeling was undeniable. By the end of the evening, the guests had returned to their celebrations. The music had faded into soft melodies, and the stars above Aurora Prime had grown brighter. In the stillness of space, Celine stood near the balcony, her mind racing, her heart still unsettled from the boldness of her actions. She had kissed Cale Draven on a whim, a daring act meant to shock or amuse, yet instead of chaos, It had sparked something unexpected. A connection, a recognition, a sense that this encounter was the start of a story far bigger than either of them could imagine. Cale approached quietly, his presence gentle but commanding. He stopped beside her, looking out at Earth with her. "You've got courage," he said softly, almost as if confessing a truth. "Few people dare to act without thinking." Celine turned to meet his gaze, surprised by the sincerity in his tone. There was no condescension, no mockery, only respect, and something more elusive, something that hinted at a devotion she did not yet understand. For the first time, Celine realized that she had entered a world far larger than she had imagined, and at the center of it was a man who, despite wealth, power, and influence, seemed to see her, not for her station, her mistakes, or her background, but for herself. And that realization both thrilled and terrified her. In that quiet moment, above Earth with the stars as witnesses, Celine understood one thing. Whatever this was, whatever path lay ahead, it would change everything. The next morning, Celine woke to the hum of the Aurora Prime's engines. Her mind was still replaying the events of the previous night. The kiss, the whispers, Cale's calm and measured reaction. Nothing made sense. Yet she could not shake the feeling that something important had shifted between them, something unspoken but powerful. She dressed quickly, trying to focus on her work, but even the engines seemed distant in her thoughts. As she walked to the maintenance bay, she noticed a message waiting for her on her wrist pad. It was from Cale Draven. The simple note read, "Meet me in the observation lounge now." Celine's heart skipped a beat. Meeting him alone could be risky, socially and professionally, but curiosity won over caution. She made her way through the station's corridors, passing other engineers and technicians who gave polite nods, unaware of the drama that had unfolded the night before. The observation lounge was quiet. Large panoramic windows offered a perfect view of the stars, with Earth's blue oceans and white clouds slowly rotating beneath them. Kyle was already there, leaning casually against the railing. He looked as composed as ever, but when he noticed Celine enter, a small, almost imperceptible, smile appeared on his face. "You came," he said, his voice calm but carrying a weight that made Celine pause. "Good. I wanted to speak with you, away from the others." Celine hesitated, unsure what to say. I wasn't sure if I should," she admitted. "After last night." Kyle shook his head. "It's fine. I wasn't offended. Actually, I've been waiting for someone like you." The words made her frown. "Someone like me?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "You see things differently, Celine. You act without thinking sometimes, but in a way that reveals courage, creativity, and honesty. Those are qualities few people here have. Most hide behind wealth, influence, or appearances. You don't." His eyes met hers, steady and sincere. Celine felt a flush rise to her cheeks, but she said nothing, simply letting him continue. "I noticed your work on the engines," Cale said, turning slightly to gesture toward the station. "You improved them beyond the standard specifications. Most engineers would have stopped at efficiency. You went further. You improved safety, durability, and even long-term adaptability. I've been following your progress for years," Celine blinked. "Years?" she asked, stunned. I didn't think anyone outside my team even knew." Cale's expression softened. "I do. I've supported your work quietly. Scholarships, research funding, even the chance to be here on the station. I arranged some of it, not to control you, but to ensure your talents had the chance to flourish." Celine's mind reeled. You've been behind all that?" she whispered. She felt a mix of awe and suspicion. "Why? Why would you care about me of all people?" Cale's gaze softened further and he looked out at Earth before speaking again. "Because I believe in human potential, and because I saw something in you that reminded me why I started this work in the first place. Humanity is capable of greatness, of invention, courage, and resilience. I protect it, I invest in it, And sometimes I protect and invest in the people who can make the biggest difference. Celine struggled to find words. The man she had thought was untouchable, cold, and distant had quietly shaped the path of her life. She felt a surge of emotions, gratitude, confusion, and something like admiration growing into something deeper. Cale's voice pulled her back. You don't have to understand everything now, just know this. Your presence here isn't a coincidence. Your work isn't just appreciated, it matters. And I want to see where it can lead, with you fully in control of your own choices. Celine looked at him, seeing not a millionaire but a human being who had quietly devoted himself to supporting others. She realized that his calm, composed exterior hid years of careful planning, effort, and observation. She felt a strange respect, mixed with unease. Could she trust someone who had influenced her life so subtly without her knowing? Before she could respond, the station's alarms suddenly blared. A deep, resonant voice echoed through the lounge. Attention. Unknown object detected. All personnel prepare for immediate evaluation. The lights shifted to red, and a holographic map appeared, showing a distant point in space heading toward the colony world orbiting a nearby star. Cale's expression changed instantly. The calm, reflective man disappeared, replaced by someone sharp, focused, and commanding. Celine, he said, his voice urgent but controlled. This is why I've prepared. You're going to see why your work matters, and why I've watched over you all these years. Celine felt a mixture of fear and anticipation. Something enormous was happening, and she realized that the billionaire she had kissed impulsively was far more than he seemed. He wasn't just wealthy, he was a protector, a strategist, and now, unexpectedly, her ally. The moment stretched, heavy with tension and possibility. Celine understood with clarity that her life had shifted irrevocably. She had entered a world where courage, talent, and human spirit mattered more than wealth or status. And standing beside her, Cale Draven waited, calm and prepared as if he had been expecting this moment all along. Celine drew a deep breath, steadying herself. Whatever lay ahead, she knew she could face it, not alone, but with someone who had quietly believed in her long before she dared to believe in herself. The stars outside Aurora Prime seemed brighter, infinite, and full of challenges waiting to be overcome. And in that instant, Celine understood. Her bold kiss had not been reckless. It had been the spark that set everything in motion. The station's alarm continued to hum faintly in the background as Celine followed Cale through the corridors of Aurora Prime. Despite the sudden urgency, her mind remained caught in a swirl of questions. Why had Cale been quietly supporting her all these years? What did he truly want? And now, with the alarm sounding, she had little time to dwell on her curiosity. Kyle led her to a small, secure operations room, one she had never seen before. The walls were lined with screens showing distant planets, asteroid belts, and star systems. At the center, a holographic display projected a strange anomaly, an object moving rapidly toward the colony world of Thalos Prime. It was not just any object. It pulsed with a strange, irregular energy pattern that set Celine's instincts on high alert. Celine, Kyle said, his voice low but firm, this is why I prepared. You see, the universe is far larger and far more dangerous than most people understand, and humans are often underestimated. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. Years ago, I made first contact with an alien intelligence. At the time, I realized that humanity would need protection. I started preparing quietly, ensuring that people like you, talented, creative, brave, could rise to meet challenges no one else could even imagine. Celine's eyes widened. You've been preparing for this? For years? Kyle nodded. Yes. That's why I've watched over you. Not just because of your work, but because of who you are. Your courage, your ingenuity. They matter. I've been investing in people like you, so that when the time came, humanity could respond. Celine felt a mix of awe and disbelief. All the subtle interventions, the scholarships, the research funding, the chance to be on Aurora Prime. They had not been coincidences. He had been guiding her life from behind the scenes. For the first time, she understood the depth of his devotion, though it was no ordinary affection. It was a strategic, long-term belief in human potential anchored in trust and admiration. And now the time has come, Kyle continued, pointing to the holographic object. That object is heading for Thalos Prime. If it reaches the planet, the consequences will be catastrophic. The colonies are vulnerable. Most people would panic or flee, but I need to act, and I need you. Celine felt a rush of adrenaline. Her mind, trained for engines and calculations, began to process the challenge before her. What do you need me to do? She asked. Kyle smiled faintly. Use your mind, your creativity, your understanding of systems. I've built defenses, but they are incomplete without your insights. I've been preparing quietly, yes, but no one else has. Your perspective. You are uniquely capable of solving problems that even my resources cannot fully address. Celine's heart pounded, but she also felt a surge of determination. She had always believed in human ingenuity, in the idea that one person could make a difference. But she had never imagined standing beside a man who had been quietly believing in her all along, someone whose devotion combined trust, patience, and strategic vision. As she worked with Kale to analyze the approaching object, she began to notice details that others might have missed. Its energy readings were irregular, almost organic, pulsing in ways that suggested intelligence rather than random motion. It's not a simple asteroid, she said, pointing to the hologram. It's moving with purpose. Kyle nodded, his expression serious. Exactly. This is why preparation matters. Most would see it and panic. Few would understand its patterns. You, Celine, have always been able to think in ways others cannot. That is why I watched over you for so long. Not out of control, not out of ego, but because I believed in what you could do. Celine took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of respect and awe. His devotion was not about wealth, fame, or recognition. It was about faith in human potential, and in her specifically. Every scholarship, every opportunity, every subtle intervention had been designed to help her grow, to prepare her for this very moment. She realized that her bold kiss was not just an impulsive act. It had sparked a connection with someone who had already been devoted to her, in a way that transcended ordinary relationships. Kyle handed her a data pad, showing schematics of the station's defensive systems. We need to integrate these systems with your engine modifications. You'll have the insight to optimize energy distribution and stabilization. Humanity's survival depends on it. Celine felt the weight of responsibility, but she also felt a strange confidence. She was not alone. The man who had quietly believed in her for years was here, not as a distant benefactor, but as a partner. She realized that this moment was not only a test of human ingenuity, it was also a test of trust, of collaboration, and of courage. Together, they worked in silence, their minds focused on the approaching threat. The station hummed around them, unaware of the danger beyond its walls. Stars streaked past the observation windows as the unknown object drew closer. Celine felt a strange sense of calm amid the urgency. She had always believed in human resilience, and now she understood the true power of devotion, how one person's faith in another could shape destinies, even across years of unseen guidance. For the first time, Celine fully comprehended Kale's hidden, long-term devotion. It was not just admiration or affection. It was faith, patience, and belief in human potential. And in this moment, she realized that her life was intertwined with something far greater than she had ever imagined. The survival of the colonies, and perhaps the future of humanity itself. As the object drew nearer, Selena looked at Kyle, ready to act. Whatever lay ahead, she knew she was prepared, not just with skill, but with someone who had silently believed in her all along. The alarms on Aurora Prime had quieted into a steady warning hum, but the tension in the operations room remained thick. Celine and Kale stared at the holographic display, watching the unknown object accelerate toward Thalos Prime. It moved unnaturally, fast, weaving through asteroid fields with precision that no ordinary vessel could achieve. Celine's instincts told her it was intelligent, and Kale's expression confirmed her fears. "This isn't just a threat to the colony," Kale said, his voice steady but urgent. "It's a probe, something that's testing human defenses. They're studying us, evaluating us, and if we're unprepared, they could strike next in a much more dangerous way." Celine felt a chill. She had worked on engines, systems, and defenses, but she had never imagined facing something alive in space that could outthink humans. Yet, as fear threatened to paralyze her, she also felt a spark of determination. Kale had been preparing for this for years, and now she understood why. She was not just a participant in this crisis, she was a vital part of the solution. Kale turned to her, his calm gaze locking onto hers. "You see, Celine, most people would panic. They would flee or hide. But humans adapt. Humans solve problems. And you, more than anyone, can see patterns and find solutions others overlook. That is why I've supported you all this time." Celine swallowed hard, feeling the weight of both responsibility and admiration. I didn't know," she admitted. "All those years you were watching, helping?" Kale nodded. "I've never wanted recognition, and I've never wanted to control you. I only wanted to ensure that people who could make a difference had the chance to do so. And now, the universe has tested us." He gestured toward the display. "This is the first real test, and we cannot fail." Celine's mind raced. She began analyzing the object's trajectory, its energy pulses, and the way it navigated space. Her eyes widened as she noticed patterns that suggested deliberate testing of human systems. "It's probing defenses," she said. "It's seeing how fast we can react, how strong our shields are, how adaptable our systems can be. It's learning from us." Kale's expression was grave but controlled. "Exactly. That is why I prepared quietly. I invested in research, in technology, in people like you. I had to ensure that when something like this happened, humanity wouldn't be helpless." Celine realized that his devotion went far beyond personal interest. He had built hidden networks of defense, funded advanced research, and quietly positioned humans with the skills to survive. And he had chosen her, not because of chance, but because he believed in her ability to think beyond the obvious, to act where others would hesitate. The station's control panels beeped urgently, signaling the object's proximity to the outer defenses. Kale moved quickly, coordinating ships and energy shields. Celine worked alongside him, integrating her engine modifications into the defensive systems. Her hands moved with precision, guided by both instinct and years of experience. Every calculation mattered. Every adjustment could save thousands of lives. As they worked, Kale explained the wider picture. "This object is only a probe. There are others out there. Civilizations far older and more advanced than humans are watching. Most would consider us insignificant, but I've always believed in humanity's ingenuity. I've prepared because I knew that one day our species would be tested, and the people I've watched over, like you, will determine our response." Celine's mind raced with awe. He had not just devoted himself to her personally, he had devoted himself to humanity, quietly guiding her life so she could rise to this moment. She realized that the bold kiss the night before had been insignificant compared to the devotion Kyle had shown over years, shaping destinies with quiet care. The object approached faster. Its energy pulses intensified, and the station's shields flickered under the strain. Celine adjusted the power distribution, her heart pounding. "We need to anticipate its moves," she said. "It's testing multiple systems simultaneously. If we don't respond in time, it will breach the outer defenses." Kale nodded, his hands moving across his control panel. "We'll adapt. Humanity adapts. That is our greatest strength." Together, they guided the station's defenses, their minds working in perfect sync. Celine marveled at how Kale combined calm strategy with faith in human potential. He never micromanaged, never doubted her ability to contribute. He trusted her, and that trust gave her strength. As the probe drew closer, the station's shields held, reinforced by Celine's engine modifications. The object twisted and turned, testing limits, probing weaknesses, but every time it adjusted, they adapted faster. The battle was not violent but mental, a contest of strategy, speed, and intelligence. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. Finally, the probe halted, retreating slightly as if acknowledging the human's skill. The warning lights dimmed. Celine leaned against the console, breathing heavily, her hands trembling with exhaustion and relief. Kyle stood beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said softly. "We did it. Humanity prevailed this time." Celine met his gaze, her admiration deeper than ever. She realized that his devotion had never been about wealth or status. It had been about belief in her and humanity and the potential to rise against impossible odds. And in this moment she understood that they were no longer just engineer and millionaire. They were partners, bound by trust, respect, and the quiet power of years-long devotion. The stars outside Aurora Prime twinkled as if in approval. Humanity had been tested and survived, and Celine knew that this was only the beginning. The quiet after the probe's retreat did not last long. Aurora Prime hummed with the activity of engineers, pilots, and scientists who were still monitoring distant signals and recalculating the station's defenses. Celine and Kyle stood in the operations room, reviewing the data from the encounter. The probe had retreated, but its patterns were clear. It had been learning, observing, and adapting. The alien intelligence would return, stronger and smarter. Kale leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the stars. "Celine, there's something you need to know," he said, his voice calm but heavy. "My devotion to you has never been simple admiration. It is connected to all of this." Celine frowned, confused. Connected? How? He turned to face her fully, his gaze unwavering. "I have been preparing humanity for threats we barely understand. Your talents, your courage, your insight, they are rare. That is why I've quietly supported you over the years. You are not just a brilliant engineer, you are a key to survival." Celine's mouth opened, then closed. The words stunned her. "You mean everything you've done, it was for this, not just for me personally?" Kale shook his head. "No, not just for you. But in supporting you, I have ensured that someone capable, someone who could make a difference, would be ready when the universe tested us. Your role has always been important, though I never interfered beyond what was necessary to give you the chance to grow." Celine felt a strange mix of pride and fear. All the scholarships, the research grants, the opportunities on Aurora Prime, they had not been coincidences. Every step of her life had been quietly guided by him. I don't know what to say," she whispered. "I thought I was choosing my path on my own." "You are," Kyle said softly. "You have always made your own choices. I only provided support when it was needed. Everything else, the courage you showed last night, your quick thinking with the probe, was entirely yours. That is why I believe in you." Celine's heart pounded. His devotion was unlike anything she had imagined. It was not romantic gestures or wealth-flaunting power. It was patience, faith, and belief in her abilities. And now, standing in the operations room, she realized that this quiet devotion was intertwined with the fate of humanity itself. Just as she absorbed his words, a new alert flashed on the holographic display. Multiple signals appeared, converging, on distant colonies. Kale's expression hardened. "The probe was only the beginning," he said. "They've been observing more than just Aurora Prime. They are assessing human colonies across the system. If we fail to respond, countless lives could be at risk." Celine's mind raced. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. "What can we do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear. Kyle smiled faintly, a mixture of reassurance and seriousness. "We fight back in our way, not with brute force alone, but with strategy, innovation, and courage. Humanity has survived for thousands of years because we adapt. That is what I've been preparing for, and that is why you are here. Together, we can turn this threat into an opportunity to prove that humans are stronger, smarter, and braver than anyone expects." Celine nodded, feeling a surge of determination. The bold kiss she had shared with Kale the night before now seemed trivial compared to the bond forming between them. A bond of trust, respect, and shared purpose. She realized that his devotion, though hidden for years, had always been about more than her. It was about belief in human potential, in her potential, and in what they could accomplish together. For the next hours, they worked tirelessly. Celine guided modifications to the station's engines, increasing their responsiveness and adaptability to external energy pulses. Kale coordinated defense fleets, rerouting ships and energy shields to cover vulnerable colonies. Every decision was precise, every adjustment critical. Together they formed a seamless team, their combined talents magnified by trust and understanding. As night, or what passed for night in space, fell on the station, Celine finally allowed herself a moment to breathe. Kyle approached, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You see why I never revealed everything before?" he asked gently. "Faith takes time. Belief in people takes time. I had to know you could rise to the challenge, not just for me, but for all of humanity." Celine looked into his eyes, understanding at last. His devotion was not about control or ego. It was patience, investment, and unshakable belief. Years of quiet support had prepared her for this moment, for the responsibility now resting on her shoulders. She felt a deep respect and an unexpected warmth toward him. "You've always believed in me," she said softly, "even when I didn't believe in myself." Kyle nodded, a small, rare smile touching his lips. "I always will. And now it's time to show the universe what humans are capable of. Together, we can face whatever comes next." Celine drew a deep breath, her resolve solidifying. The stars outside Aurora Prime gleamed like silent witnesses, endless and infinite. For the first time, she felt that her life, her courage, and her ingenuity were not only recognized, but vital. She understood that Kale's years-long devotion had not been about him. It had been about trust, belief, and the unyielding strength of the human spirit. And in that quiet, infinite moment, Celine realized that she was ready. Ready to face the unknown, ready to protect the colonies, and ready to stand beside a man who had quietly devoted himself not only to her, but to humanity itself. Together, they turned back to the holographic display, already planning the next steps in the fight to prove that humans could rise, adapt, and survive, even against the most mysterious and intelligent forces in the galaxy. The approaching signals were no longer just probes. They moved deliberately, coordinated with precision, and were rapidly closing in on Thalos Prime and other colonies. Celine's fingers flew over the control panel, adjusting the station's energy output, rerouting power to shields and fine-tuning the engines she had worked on for years. Kale moved beside her, calm and efficient, issuing commands to ships in orbit and coordinating with the colonies. Despite the tension, his presence gave her confidence. She realized that his devotion had never been passive. He had spent years preparing not only her but humanity itself for moments like this. "This isn't just a test anymore," Kale said, his voice low but urgent. "They're probing weaknesses, but this time they're ready to strike. Every system we have matters. Every move counts." Celine nodded, her mind racing as she calculated energy flows, shield capacities, and orbital alignments. She could feel the weight of thousands of lives resting on her choices. Her bold kiss with Kyle the night before now seemed small compared to the responsibility of survival that hung in the air. Yet she also felt a strange thrill. For the first time, her skills and courage were not just appreciated, They were critical. As the alien formations entered the system, ships streaked through space, deploying shields and weapons. The aliens moved with intelligence, avoiding direct confrontation, probing gaps in defenses, learning as humans responded. Celine noticed subtle patterns, how they adjusted to her modifications, how their movements hinted at strategic thinking. They're learning faster than expected, she warned. Kale's eyes narrowed, but his voice remained steady. Exactly. And that's why we adapt faster. Humanity learns too. That is why I've devoted so much time and effort to preparing for this. Not for recognition, not for power. For people like you, Celine, and for the future of every human being in this system. Celine felt a surge of determination. She adjusted the engine's output, redirecting excess energy to reinforce shields on vulnerable colonies. The calculations were complex, but she could see solutions unfolding in real time. We can hold them off, she said, her voice firm. If we anticipate their movements, if we adapt quickly, we can protect the colonies. Kyle smiled faintly, a rare expression of approval. That's the spirit. You understand that survival is more than weapons, it's innovation, courage, and teamwork. That is the strength humans have that others underestimate. Hours passed in a tense blur. Celine and Kale worked in perfect sync, integrating her engine modifications with his defensive strategies. Energy pulses from alien ships struck the shields, but each time Celine redirected power, the station absorbed the blows. Humans in orbit and on the colonies followed her calculations, adjusting their positions and operations as the aliens tested every weakness. At one point, a massive energy wave hit Thalos Prime. Celine's heart raced. She quickly analyzed the flow and realized a critical failure could occur if the energy reached the planetary grid. Kale, we need to reroute the power now, she shouted. He immediately coordinated with her, and together they stabilized the planet's systems just in time. The aliens paused briefly as if reassessing. Celine realized that this was more than battle. It was a mental contest. The aliens adapted, humans adapted faster, and every clever decision, every moment of bravery mattered. She felt alive, not from danger alone, but from the knowledge that her skills and courage were essential, and that Kyle had believed in her all along. As the standoff continued, Kyle spoke softly beside her. Do you understand now why I've devoted myself to you? Not because of wealth, not because of admiration, but because I believe in the strength of humans, and in the strength of people like you. You embody what it means to rise to challenges. Others cannot. Celine met his gaze, feeling a mix of respect, gratitude, and something deeper. His years-long devotion had been about more than guidance. It had been about faith. And now, in the midst of a test that could determine the fate of countless lives, that faith empowered her to act beyond fear. Finally, after hours of careful maneuvering, calculated energy shifts, and precise coordination, the aliens began to retreat. Their energy patterns pulsed one last time. Then they withdrew from the system, leaving the colonies intact. Celine slumped against the console, exhausted but exhilarated. Kale placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. You did it, he said quietly. We did it. Humanity prevailed this time, thanks to your courage and ingenuity. Celine looked at him, understanding at last that his devotion had never been about wealth, status, or even affection alone. It had been patience, guidance, and belief in her ability to rise to challenges no one else could meet. She realized that her boldness, her skills, and her determination were now inseparable from his faith in humanity's potential. As they surveyed the aftermath, the stars outside Aurora Prime shone like silent witnesses to human resilience. The colonies were safe for now, but Celine knew this was only the beginning. She felt a deep respect for Kale and a quiet pride in herself. Together, they had proven that humans could survive and even thrive against the most intelligent and unpredictable threats. For the first time, Celine understood fully that her life had been guided not by luck, but by careful, long-term devotion. And as she stood beside Kale, She realized that courage, ingenuity, and belief could forge bonds stronger than any obstacle in the galaxy. And in that moment, Celine knew that no matter what the universe sent next, she and Kale, working together, would be ready. The stars outside Aurora Prime were calm now, but the tension of the past days still hung in the air. Celine stood at the observation window, her hands resting lightly on the railing as she watched distant colonies twinkle below. Humanity had survived the first real test of its ingenuity and courage, but she knew the universe would not wait long to challenge them again. Yet, she no longer felt fear. She felt determination, clarity, and a growing understanding of the man who had quietly shaped her life. Kale approached silently, standing beside her without a word. His calm presence had always been reassuring, but now it carried something more, a quiet strength rooted in years of preparation, patience, and devotion. Celine turned to him, searching his eyes, and found the sincerity that had guided her for so long. "You know," Kale said softly, "I never wanted to be remembered as the richest man in the galaxy. I wanted to ensure that humans could rise to any challenge, and that those with talent and courage, people like you, could have the chance to shape the future." Celine's chest tightened. She had always thought of him as untouchable, distant, a figure too vast to truly understand. Yet now she realized he had been present in her life in ways no one else could ever be. Every scholarship, every opportunity, every moment that had helped her grow, Kale had quietly orchestrated it, not to control her but to allow her to shine. "I didn't know," she whispered. "All these years you guided me, believed in me?" Kale nodded. "Not in a controlling way. I only wanted to protect potential. I knew that one day humanity would be tested, and I had to ensure you and others like you would be ready. Your courage, your ingenuity, they've proven what humans can do when we trust ourselves and each other." Celine felt warmth rise in her chest, not only from understanding his devotion, but from recognizing the depth of faith he had placed in humanity itself. He had not acted out of ego or power, but out of belief in her and in the species he had quietly devoted himself to. Before she could respond, the station's monitors lit up again. A new signal appeared, distant but undeniable. The probe had retreated, but Kale's preparation had already accounted for future challenges. He moved to the control panel, coordinating fleets, adjusting shields, and reviewing data with calm efficiency. Celine joined him, instinct and experience guiding her hands as she assisted in calculations and system adjustments. "This is not over," Kyle said, his voice firm. "The universe will test us again. But now we are ready, not just because of technology, but because of belief in ourselves, in each other, and in the human spirit." Celine nodded. She understood now that Kale's devotion had always been more than personal. It was a quiet force, shaping destinies, preparing humans for challenges beyond imagination. And in that preparation, she had found both purpose and partnership. Hours passed as they worked together, ensuring the station and colonies were fully protected. Celine marveled at how seamlessly their minds connected. She adjusted systems, monitored energy flows, and coordinated with distant colonies, while Kyle implemented strategic maneuvers and guided ships through space. Together, they were a force greater than the sum of their parts, a partnership built on trust, skill, and the unspoken devotion that had carried them this far. Finally, the immediate threat subsided. The alien probe's signals diminished, fading into the depths of space. Celine leaned against the console, exhausted but exhilarated. Kyle placed a steady hand on her shoulder, a gesture that conveyed both reassurance and quiet pride. "You did more than survive," he said softly. "You led, you adapted, you proved that humans can rise to any challenge." Celine met his gaze. "And you believed in me all this time, even when I doubted myself." Kyle smiled faintly, the expression rare and unguarded. "Yes, and I always will. That is what devotion is, not just love, but trust, patience, and faith in another person's strength." And in you I saw all of that, and more. Celine felt a deep understanding settle within her. The bold kiss she had shared the night she first met him had sparked curiosity, but it had been Cale's quiet, patient devotion that had shaped the course of her life. His faith had allowed her to grow, to rise, and to face challenges that no one else could. In the soft glow of the observation window, Celine realized that she was no longer just an engineer on a luxury station. She was a protector of humanity, a partner to a man who had believed in her for years, and a symbol of what courage and ingenuity could accomplish. Together, they had proven that human potential was limitless. Cale turned to her, eyes calm and sincere. "The universe will test us again, Celine, but whatever comes next, we will face it together. And humanity will endure not because of wealth or technology, but because of people like us, people who believe, who act, and who never give up." Celine nodded, a quiet smile forming. She had come to the station uncertain and anxious, yet now she understood the depth of devotion, courage, and belief. She had kissed him boldly once, but it was the years-long faith, trust, and preparation that had truly changed everything. As they stood side by side, gazing at the stars, Celine felt a profound certainty. Whatever challenges awaited humanity, she and Cale would meet them, not as millionaire and engineer, but as partners, bound by respect, trust, and devotion. And together, they would ensure that humans could rise, adapt, and thrive among the stars. The galaxy stretched infinite before them, full of dangers and possibilities. But for the first time, Celine understood that humanity's greatest strength was not technology or money. It was courage, ingenuity, and the unwavering faith that one human could believe in another, and in that belief, in that devotion, the future was theirs to shape.